Hello, I am Jayanto Chatterjee from IIT Kanpur, and we are discussing services management contemporary issues in today's world and how the service philosophy is changing businesses all across. And that will be a core topic for our entire set of sessions. But in this particular session, we will focus more deeply on this customer involvement in value creation, or what we call customer co-creation. So in the past, I would say maybe for the past 30, 40 years, marketing as a concept or even organizational business strategies as a concept depended on what we call the service organization. I am at this moment using service organization, but really all organizations looked at customers across some kind of a barrier or some kind of a place, somewhat physical, somewhat virtual. And so service organization and service consumers were separated. And the business was what we call market to. The businesses marketed to the consumer. In between were distributors, dealers, stockists, and so on. In between there were system enhancers, system builders, and so on. But these two entities remained distinctly separated, and this side marketed to this side. The paradigm is changing today to sort of this diagram. This diagram I have shown once before, but I am going to explain it in greater detail today. Here, as you see, we still have this service organization and service consumer. They are on this side. But we have now included service employees. In this diagram, as you will see, service employees are almost separated from service consumers. So you had some defined interaction, but you were not actually part of that employeeship. In this situation, what we are looking at is that service organizations, service employees, service consumers, they form a triangle and an interactive triangle. That means service consumers can interact and can often actually alternate places with the service employees. As a result, today we have new terminologies like, say, internal marketing and external marketing. I will now move to this next slide, inspired by Professor C.K. Prahalad and Ramaswamy's landmark work, that how in today's world value is getting created. So we are no longer in this world where organizations and consumers are separated. But as you see here, that this diagram, which is on top, where the old world is depicted, where in this middle is the interaction space. On one side we have the organization with its supply chain and delivery chain, and on the other side we have the customers. This diagram is therefore now getting changed to the diagram here, this arrow. So we have here the organization, the firm, and we are now looking at the organization as a network. So even here, there is not a supplier-buyer relationship. We are looking at the whole constellation as a network. And we are looking at the customers also as a network. Because now we realize, and when Professor Prahladan Ramaswamy did this work, I think maybe 10, 12 years back. At that time, there was a lot of farsight in this. But today, with the rapid proliferation of social media and ubiquitousness of communication and information technology, this is an absolute reality. If you are unhappy with the service from a particular healthcare center, or from a hotel, or from a restaurant, or your mobile phone service has created a problem for you by not explaining its tariff mechanism, you will be on Facebook, you will be on different other platforms, voicing your concern, voicing your unhappiness, and often it will rapidly spread even across the world, which we say going viral. So customer is a network, the organizations are in a network. So we understand that now there is not much of a barrier. So this boundary is diffused. This customer-company interaction no longer takes place in a distinct space. It permeates on both sides. So customers provide input, even at the idea stage. Earlier we did market research, took ideas from customer and brought it back. Now customers often participate in real time in new product idea creation. We will see some interesting examples a little later. So this transition from the traditional to the new world of value co-creation, and those of you who are interested, please do read up. I think most of the work from Prahladan Ramaswamy are available on the net for free reading. Please do read their work to understand this paradigm shift. The co-creation is very important because it actually understands that now the relationships cannot be segregated. The relationships are actually quite connected. So that's why there is so much of emphasis on who has how many connections, who has how many followers and how many people are you following, because that creates this tremendous power of communication through social media that can change the meaning of a brand, that can change your marketing message. So it is no longer that you do market research, come up with some ideas, tinker with some ideas, create a product, and then introduce the product, get some feedback, and then tinker with the product. No. The whole thing happens now as a seamless back and forth process in almost real time and dynamically. So new flavors can be introduced for ice cream or yogurt almost in real time as you understand the customer reaction coming to you continuously. Customers participate that I did this and I mixed this ice cream with this ice cream and it was wonderful, and a new flavor is created. So fusion is a new very popular word, and it derives a lot of strength from co-creation. And co-creation is also a learning process. Being in real-time connection, organizations and customers can learn from each other. So I would also refer to this particular interesting research paper by Nick Coates, 2009, Co-creation, New Pathways to Value. A lot of more examples and processes are described there, and also the C.K. Prahlad's book that I referred to. So main movements that are happening, that from passive buyers, customers are becoming active agents. Instead of organizations listening to customers and then doing their own interpretation, you are now in a constant dialogue. Customers are partners, and each other's points are to be understood almost in real time. Experiences are to be shared, and there has to be a continuous knowledge flow between the organization and the consumer, and less reliance on interpreting experts. So with various kinds of big data analytic tools, market research in many ways now are less dependent on market research experts. Managers can understand customers' needs and opinions and reactions almost in real time through the system of gathering information, interpreting information, and providing back knowledgeable feedback. So Prahlad had actually configured this interesting acronym called DART, which is a prerequisite for successful customer involvement in co-creation of value. And to expand, it stands for dialogue, access, and risk management and transparency. So dialogue is very clear that you are not actually now doing store forward messaging between the organization and the customer. So it is not exactly as we showed here, that you are not dependent on time lag, communication with time lag. You are looking at communication almost in real time, and therefore from listening to customers, we are moving to dialogue with the customer. So that is the first important point, what we call dialogue. Access. Earlier, customers didn't have access to what was going on between the organization and its employees. Now, this barrier is dissolved. The employees and the consumers can be in direct dialogue, as can management be in direct dialogue. So, knowledge that was earlier only available within the organization is now often put out for understanding and interpretation and comments from the customer. So access to knowledge, bidirectional, consumer as well as organization, and expertise for interpretation, expertise for sharing experiences, construct new paradigm is an important element. Risk management means obviously as more knowledge, more internal information will be shared, there will be a sense of risk, that whether confidential information, whether critical information will leak out. But we find that the transparency and the sharing of information no doubt increases the risk, but it also at the same time brings more responsibility in the customer's mind. So customers care for their serving organizations, and there is a self-management of confidentiality in most cases. So on the whole, our experience shows that transparency is good. There is an amount of risk that needs to be managed. You need to calibrate it. You can have some customers with whom you can share a product at its beta stage, a software at its beta stage. They are your core customers, privileged customers. You don't need to do it with everybody, but companies like Microsoft has gained enormously by sharing their problems, and they have been able to identify flaws and bugs in their software far more faster by sharing, by involving the lead users in the software development. So when we look at examples, obviously we have examples like new ice cream and yogurt flavors being created through this value co-creation method, customers participatory value creation method. T-shirt designs, toys and decoration, high price crystal jewelry design. Jewelers knew all along that there were customers who were quite artistic, and they advised the jeweler to create new designs. Now, in many cases, these designs with customers' permission and sometimes sharing of some royalty with the customer, these designs are used globally. So this whole domain, which is called crowdsourcing, or often ideas are sourced through competitions among customers, or even customers and their employees, or customers and their friends, and so on. So new design for sports shoes, detergents. So if you see these types of companies, you will see many of their websites have active areas for crowdsourcing of ideas, for customers' involvement in product ideas, customers' involvement in product redesign or refinement, and so on. And of course, we cannot conclude a discussion on co-creation without discussing the enormous gains that have been made by software companies like Microsoft or Linux, or creation of services like YouTube, Wikipedia, or Facebook. In fact, in this particular session, or many of the sessions of this particular course, as you enjoy it on YouTube, and you participate in the forum, and you share your experiences, and you share your concerns, and you put forward your questions, and answers are given by your colleagues participating in this course, we are in the process of co-creation of knowledge. This is the new world where a teacher is no longer a sage on the stage. We are no longer preaching. We are interacting. We are sharing our knowledge, and you are bringing your expertise and experience, and in the process, each such session for times to come, for days to come, can be an enriched session because of this knowledge flow, because of this knowledge co-creation through participation. Think about it, and you will understand the power of this new paradigm. I will conclude by showing two quick examples of the work done by our students at IIT Kanpur. This first group of students who were working on the so-called project of treasure from trash, we were looking at how waste material of different types can be reused and put to productive area. So this particular group, they worked on electronic waste, one of the most troublesome waste types of modern world. And I'm not going through the whole presentation how they did it, but the interesting idea is that this group of students, they created, the leader was Vivek, and they created a service which can be an additional source of income for rack pickers, people who are at the lowest strata of the economic pyramid, and they can take these electronic waste which they collect. And this group of students, particularly Vivek, developed simple machines by which our kabadiwalas, our rack pickers, can develop this beautiful jewelry using electronic waste, parts of printed circuit boards or electronic components thrown away in the garbage bin. Wonderful. Look at this frame. It will cost something like with the machines they had developed, they calculated that maybe a frame like this can be produced by those simple set of machines in about 10 minutes. Their production cost will be 15 rupees. And they did check with the market that it can easily be resold at least at 150 rupees. So this is an example of wonderful ideas created through the co-creation methodology by involving the rack pickers and creating beautiful product reassignment. Another small example as the last one. This is a group of students recently. Piyush was one of my students there. They looked at urbanization and the many problems thrown up by rapid urbanization in India. Like villages are moving away and away from cities, huge amount of waste generated. But they focused on this thing, that lack of greenery and lack of horizontal surface for gardening and lack of fresh food, flowers, vegetables in cities. And they decided to look at this area of urban vertical gardens, using the vertical surface of tall high-rise buildings to grow vegetables, flowers and beautiful green cover, which is productive as well as very good for mental health of citizens. Now to do this, Piyush actually interacted with gardeners, interacted with other students and created a new service which can be provided by a new generation of gardeners who will have that competency and that training to create on horizontal surfaces, tall horizontal surfaces of buildings, beautiful gardens using almost waste material. If you can see here, they have used coconut husks, they have used material drawn from palm tree barks, which usually falls down at the base of the tree after some time. They used thrown away jute sacks and converted the whole thing into a hanging garden. They adopted the Japanese hanging garden design, integrated that with this, and understand that this was done in a way involving the customer, number of residents of our campus as co-creator, involving the gardeners who will become now a higher level service provider in an urban setting, who will actually supply you all the gardening, not only the plants, but all the implements that will allow you to develop that hobby and convert the barren vertical surface of your high-rise building into a garden growing flowers, vegetables for productive consumption. Power of crowdsourcing of ideas and co-creation by involving customers and their associates in the process and creating new service possibilities, new service entrepreneurs. We believe that some of these gardeners will become tomorrow an entrepreneur rather than an employee, and over time we will see many such new ideas taking shape becoming reality through the power of co-creation and crowdsourcing of ideas and participatory immersive implementation. Thank you.